I've been waiting for this one.
Yeah, we have to talk about Justice League.
Let me then work
Did
it
you
out.
finished it, right?
No, I didn't
You,
finish it. Crap.
it's okay. You seen the original cut, the
Seen the
theatrical
original
cut.
one, and I got
Whedon's
2
cut.
hours into this one.
Okay, so that you
I was gonna finish it last night, but I was like, I would rather sleep.
what are your sort of initial thoughts, and then I'll kind of fill in the gaps.
First off, it's bloated beyond belief. This is one of the most bloated movies I have seen. So I was like, definitely at a minimum, you could chop 30 minutes from this. But really, you could sincerely chop an hour, if not more, and have a steady flow. And I think it's just a problem of Zack Snyder and whoever else trying to do too much with one movie. I mean, it's basically they try to copy Marvel, but instead of working from the beginning to the end like Marvel did, they just went from the end and was trying to work back to the beginning. As you got for example, I'll just throw one out there. You got Thanos.
Spoilers, obviously.
Yeah. He's trying to get all the jewels. What freaking Infinity Stones? Yeah. I know this crap. I just call them jewels. The stones and everything, so it can control all life and all that crap. Well, then with DC, they're trying to get the 3 boxes and the anti-life equation so that Darkseid can control all life. And so
they're both literally, it's like both of the big bads. I mean, and I get it, I guess.
3 big bags, actually. You have Steppenwolf, and then you have Desaad, who and literally I know DC.
Yeah.
I know comics, and I'm like, okay, I know this isn't Darkseid, but that sounds very close to the Darkseid. And then you have Darkseid, and it's all through,
Joker's there too.
Randomly, like that doesn't even make sense.
So
it was very forced. Joker scene was that's a lot of the stuff came as forced. There's one part, I'll say this, and I'll let you get into it.
You're good.
There was one part with Lois Lane, and it's this is after multiple scenes of Lois Lane being sad because Superman's dead and all that stuff, and she's going through his things and everything like that. And I'm like, we get it. She's sad. Why is this in the movie? Fast forward. I don't need to see this. I already got that. Like, she was walking, and that's the thing. Even before that, she was walking sad, giving a cop coffee, like in the rain. Random bad scene. And then what's the other thing? I think they're was it Flash or some people, some of the heroes are walking up the stairs, and there's random like heavy metal music playing.
Yeah,
and it's like makes no sense. There's nothing
and then they're just like walking up the stairs. Honestly, you're like, and that scene in particular bothered me because it's, and this going off of that a little bit, one of the complaints I have is that Batman doesn't really have anything to do in this movie. He's getting everyone together, right? But he doesn't feel like Batman. Now, I'll give Batman v Superman this. Batman feels like Batman in that. He's fighting people. Like, obviously everyone was upset with that movie because he was super violent and like killing people, I guess.
But that's that version of
right. He was going for he was going for something, right?
Right.
So as far as the Snyder Cut is concerned, after watching the whole thing, I will say that it is a better movie. It is.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely.
It has the benefit of being 4 hours long.
Yep.
But it is a better movie. It makes sense. Generally the plot goes in a direction that is understandable, and there's not just kind of like weird disjointed stuff happening, and with that amount of time he's able to give character to people like Cyborg, who didn't have character in the original cut. Steppenwolf is a little more fledged out, even though at the end of the day he's still just sort of the bad guy. You know what I mean?
He is.
They give him like
get back in Darkseid's good graces. The problem is that they didn't show what he did.
Yeah, I was like, what?
To get out of his good graces.
That's what I'm saying. Is it's one of those things that it's like he's just sort of typical bad guy. that they kind of like, okay, we got to give him something so people kind of understand why he's doing this, but they were like, he messed up and he's just trying to get back into back on Darkseid's good graces, and so it's whatever. This movie.
I want to hang on. Let me interject here and say this. Okay. I think the best way I can sum it up is to say this movie is definitely better than Joss Whedon's version.
Yeah, but
even if it had I think even if Zack Snyder only did 2 hours or 2.5 hours, it'd be better than Joss Whedon, just because that was such a low bar. It was such a terrible movie.
It was not good.
Terrible.
CG's
but
bad.
Secondly, CG's terrible in that. It solves the problems of the first movie.
Yeah.
Right. But it creates its own problems.
Yeah. Not to mention that we probably aren't going to see anything else come out of this.
Yep. Exactly.
So this is the most self-indulgent movie I think I've ever seen. I swear, like, Zack Snyder gets like pleasure out of this movie, because it's almost like you can see him on screen just being like, yeah, like, I am a director, like that kind of mentality. Because, okay, so it's 4 hours long. It's in 4:3 aspect ratio. So for those of you that don't know, most movies are 16:9, meaning it's widescreen. And you do that because you get more of an epic feel, right? The only movie that I've seen okay, so it's not totally true, but the only movie I've seen in recent times that was in 4:3 was The Lighthouse. And that was done on purpose because it was trying to give a more claustrophobic atmosphere to the film. Because everything is squished in. You're focused very much on specific characters or scenes. You're not supposed to kind of get this feeling of being able to breathe very well, right? So watching Snyder's cut of Justice League, that's the first thing on my mind. You know, because the movie starts and it goes, this movie is in 4:3 aspect ratio to keep with the director's initial intention. And I go, that is a lie. That is an absolute lie. There is no way. There is absolute. And now, listen, it's a lie on, I think, on two ends, right? It's a lie because the studio never would have let that happen if his cut had been released in theaters originally.
Yep.
It's also a lie because he didn't figure that out until later, right? So, because apparently one of the reasons, one of his conditions for coming back and doing this was that he got full artistic control, which is very obvious, right? But the movie, there are scenes in that movie that are in 16:9 in the original cut. So a lot of the stuff that goes on with like the Amazons, I'm trying to remember what. Oh, the scene where Superman comes back and he's fighting all of them. A lot of that stuff that they kept in the Whedon version, it's all in 16:9. I've heard that the reason that it was apparently filmed like this is because of apparently 4:3 is the actual size of an IMAX film. I call BS on that. Not that that's not the case for an IMAX film, but who's watching this in IMAX? What IMAX theater is open? I don't. It doesn't make sense. Now, I had heard that reshoots had been done on this movie, and apparently that's not 100% true. Like, apparently a lot of this was his original footage, and they just they pulled like what they or like a solo with this, where they basically reshot 90% of the movie and added in. Well, in the case of Justice League with the reshoots, they added in jokes from Joss Whedon because they were worried that the movie was going to be another Batman v Superman, which everyone hated because it was just sad and depressing, and you know what I mean? Yeah,
well, so with Joss Whedon's version, there was too much comedy to where you couldn't take it serious.
And it was bad. It was not funny. It was,
just from that aspect. Whereas with Zack Snyder has a tendency to come off as super serious, so you do want some comic relief, but
and there's a little
forced. Yeah, there is, but it just like Flash is better in Zack Snyder's version, but still a lot of his dialogue comes across as forced. A lot of the
There's a
dialogue comes
lot of
across as
that.
forced.
Yeah,
In
there's
there.
definitely sometimes I was groaning. Like a lot of the Amazon dialogue comes off as
Yeah.
very stiff and odd. And
I mean, this is what you.
yeah,
I mean, this is what you get for. I don't understand. Don't get me wrong. I'm not saying like Zack Snyder it's kind of it's like you said. He's an okay director. He's not bad. He has some good movies. But I wouldn't
yeah.
personally. I wouldn't choose him to lead a universe. That's just me. Maybe I'm wrong, but I haven't been proven wrong so far. And it's just the
Right.
truth. I just analyzing and critiquing his product. It
As
is none of his movies have been good
someone, and this
as
is
far as with the superheroes.
yeah, I'm gonna blow smoke up my butt a little bit with saying this. Like, it's not that hard to get, especially because you have an outline for this already with what Marvel did. I think did I lose you? Are you there?
No, no. And
Okay.
I said yes.
Yeah.
Like
Okay, so
it's right
what I'm saying is
for you.
I could do this. And I'm not a DC fan by any stretch of the imagination. I mean, I like Batman. Superman's kind of lame.
Yeah, that's true. Superman is.
You know what I mean? Like he's like all powerful. And I know, listen, I know there are DC fans out there who are gonna get real pissed about me saying that, but it's just every time they use Superman in a movie, he's the Deus Ex Machina, meaning that he comes in to save the day because he's so powerful that you can't really, like, everyone else pales in comparison to him, which is also one of the problems with this movie, because by the end, Batman is kind of just standing around. Like, they give him some stuff to do, like, kind of, but he's kind of just there. And that's why I'm saying I don't like the way that they've treated Batman in the Justice League in particular. Really in the whole, like, Snyderverse or whatever. I just don't like him. I don't think he's nearly as good. I went back and watched the Dark Knight trilogy recently, and it's just like for Christian Bale's faults and his weird voice and that growl thing that he started doing.
Right.
Man, it's just those movies are just better, and that's really Batman.
They really are, and it's not Ben Affleck. I really just think it's Zack Snyder's vision, whoever else's vision for Batman, and they do a bad job of the writing and portraying Batman and that version, specifically that older version of Batman, which there is. And again, they already have the groundwork laid for them with that version of Batman. It's, you know what I mean?
Yeah, everything's there. You can tell other stories, and you can do spins on the character. As far as movies are concerned, now there are some people who are like, hardcore comic book fans. They want like the version, right? And I agree with them to some degree, but I also think that there's a lot of flexibility in movies where you can you can take what you know of the character and try different things over the years without having to do the exact same character over and over and over again, because that gets boring.
Right.
Nobody wants to see that, and movies are a different outlet than comic books are. You're not going to have a 30 arc with the same Batman. Like, that's just not how it works. There's no time for that. Like a 30 movie arc. So, the movie. Listen, the movie's fine. It's completely passable. I actually like aspects of it. I actually think Superman is pretty good in this version. I know you probably haven't even seen him yet because you're only 2 hours in. He seems like this is the one thing I kind of took away. One of the few things positive things I took away from the movie. Henry Cavill is a great Superman.
Whoa. Oh, he is the best Superman there has been. The number one, hands down. I'm a DC fan more so than a Marvel fan. I like DC better. Not that I dislike Marvel, but to me, DC is just comic book wise and everything otherwise like leaps and bounds above Marvel. And he is by far just been the best actor to portray Superman.
And you see it. I think it really comes out in this movie. You see sort of his. Now, obviously, it's taken a 3-movie arc, if you will, for him to get to this point. But he kind of realizes who he is in that moment, and kind of like being the savior of Earth, and accepting who he is, but also like you see his humanity more in this one. And
let me ask you a question.
Yeah,
go ahead. Finish your
Oh, I
thought.
was gonna say, yeah, you see his humanity more. He feels like the character I think a lot of people have wanted him to be since all of this started, and he gets to be that character for about an hour.
Yeah. So if before we get into the next topic, I'm gonna ask you this last question. What
Okay.
if you could choose somebody else to lead the DCEU universe, to lead it, and they're passionate about it, you get them like they really want to, who would you want to do that? Would you want it to be like, because the Joker was great, that's part of the DC universe, or I mean not
Oh, that guy,
not Zack Snyder's universe, but
the one with
yeah,
Joaquin
that was
Phoenix.
a great movie.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I've
with
been wanting to
Joaquin
go back
Phoenix,
and watch that.
I have to.
I don't know, man. It's definitely not J.J. Abrams, and that's who they've got lined up to now head that entire thing. And I don't understand. Dude, he's killed 2 franchises. He's killed both Star Wars and Star Trek.
Isn't he doing Lord of the Rings too? Like
I don't
a few
know,
episodes?
dude. I don't know. I don't understand. Like, he's not. I don't know why he's loved so much. Like, I can get behind, because I was sort of like into what he was doing back when Lost was in its prime. And it was like, oh man, this guy really could be like a new Steven Spielberg. Like, he has all this stuff going for him. Yeah, I don't feel that way anymore.
Oh crap! J.J. Abrams is one of the producers on Lord of the Rings.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. He's got his fingers in everything.
How?
So I don't know. I liked the way that Marvel used to allow certain directors with certain styles to film their movies. Like they had like James Gunn. No matter how you feel about James Gunn,
Right.
he has a specific style, and it worked really well for Guardians of the Galaxy. The Russo brothers did a lot of the Captain America stuff because they have a very specific action-oriented style, and that worked very well for what they're good at, right? The problem is that there's not enough directors for that, and after a while, everything just starts imitating everything else because you're trying to put these worlds together, and this is why what you saw is a lot of indie directors. They would do like one pretty good movie that people liked, and all of a sudden they're doing like, I mean, Thor Ragnarok was really good, and Taika Waititi is an exception to the rule. But I'm pretty sure like Ant-Man. What else? There's some other. I think there's some. The lady who did Wonder Woman was like an indie director, and now she's on this massively like big budget movie. She makes one good movie and makes a terrible sequel, and so it's just a lot of the people that they're bringing in, they're untested, and you're testing them on multi-million-dollar projects, and that seems really weird to me. So the last thing I'll say,
dumb, right?
Do what?
I said that seems really
It does
dumb.
seem dumb.
And,
It seems insane.
It's one thing. It's kind of like, it's one thing to use an NFL analogy, right? You have, I mean, that really wouldn't work because Sean Payton had this career. I mean, not Sean Payton, but Sean McVay had this career of working with these other people, and he was the youngest head coach in NFL history when he got hired. But you just take somebody who's never been a head coach before and gets it, and then surrounding them with other head coaches as like the assistant head coach, somebody who used to be a head coach, and then like, all this different experience in the NFL. But that's not really happening. You're having this director giving them, this full and total control, and then putting them alongside people who also don't have a ton of experience in everything as well.
Yes, there are some. And that's a thing that's so weird, is that at one point okay, so it's sort of weird because at one point they were kind of bringing in directors and doing that. At least Marvel was. And then they went to this thing where now the director of a Marvel movie is just a name on a thing. They have very little control over what goes on. Because if you like, especially with Disney, you saw this with Lord and Miller when they did Solo. And this actually leads to your point about no one was paying attention, right? It happens more, I think, on the Star Wars end than it does on the Marvel end for one reason or another. But like Lord and Miller come in to do Solo, the movie gets 90% of the way finished. They realize the kind of movie that's being made, and they fire them and then bring in Ron Howard. And so
I just don't understand.
I
really don't. Like, if you're going to hire a director, let them do their thing. I get,
pay attention. Like, the studio should be paying attention to what is going on ahead of time. And I wanted to see a Lord and Miller Solo movie. Like, release the Lord and Miller cut. Where is that?
Yeah, DC did do a smarter job by hiring what's his name that did Guardians of the Galaxy. You mentioned him a
James
second
Gunn.
ago. Yeah, James
Yeah,
Gunn.
we will be talking about Suicide Squad 2 when that finally drops on HBO Max.
Yeah,
I definitely want
that
to.
was good.
So
But that's my
I
concern
think so.
with
We'll see. DC, I just don't have any trust in DC, man. I think that most of the people who like it are just very big DC fans, and they're happy to have whatever scraps that Warner Brothers will throw to them as far as movies are concerned. And I'm a few things I'm going to be curious about to see, or be curious to see about what happens now that the Snyder Cut has been released. There are a few other movies, including Lord Miller's solo movie, where this has happened, right? That's one. Right. Another big one was the Fantastic Four movie that came out not too long ago with Michael B. Jordan. Apparently, the cut that we got is not the original cut of that. So I'm kind of wondering if we're entering this area of like new director's cuts where they're not going to put these movies in theaters, but maybe they'll spend enough money to get that cut finished and out to give people sort of like this weird alternate version of the film. Now, I could see that more with a Fantastic Four movie than I could ever with the Star Wars stuff. Like, as terrible as a lot of it is, like they treat that stuff very sacredly, so I don't know if that would ever happen. It doesn't really fit into that dynamic. But I'm just kind of wondering, there's like rumors that Kevin Feige has a cut of the 2016 Ghostbusters movie that's out there, and I'm like, oh no. Like, I don't want this to happen. I was like, can we just let these things be dead? Let it be a reminder in history of like what goes wrong with massive studio interference. Yeah. Also, just as a final note on Justice League, I think half that movie's in slow motion.
Dude, right?
Why? Dude, why? It's so unnecessary. And this is kind of that stuff that I was talking about where it's like it feels self-indulgent. It feels like he's just like really feeling his roots, trying to be this auteur. But there's so much unnecessary slow motion. Like, there's the scene with the Amazons where they're like swinging the hammers in slow motion, and then she's going under the door in slow motion, and and you're just like, oh my lord!
Then Jason Momoa is drinking some whiskey in slow motion. The waves hit.
The funniest thing, that scene in particular that you're talking about, I thought was funny. I was like, okay, so why is Aquaman wearing a ratty tank top? Right? He like comes out of the water in a ratty tank top. Gets the whiskey, right?
Right.
And then I thought that, and then he goes and he takes the tank top off, and I go, oh, that's why he was wearing a tank top. All in slow motion.
Take it off.
Yeah. And don't get me wrong, he's a very well cut man. It's very impressive the work that they did on him to get him there.
Speaking of that scene in particular, that just seemed pointless. But then
just
secondly, that part when they were singing that Icelandic song or whatnot, after he left the first time, I was like, "What?"
It's that stuff that stuff that you go. I like, again, as a.
It doesn't make sense.
Yeah, as someone who just edits videos for YouTube, I could have helped you cut stuff out of that movie to make it just the pacing just a little bit slicker. You know, it's like not necessarily giving up details or story elements, but we don't need to know that there are people that sing to Aquaman, like sing his praises when he helps them with things, or that he likes to drink whiskey on a dock without a shirt on. You know what I mean? It's just, and then, he like smashes that whiskey bottle, and I go, isn't this guy like really big into environmentalism? Like, why would he do that?
I thought the same thing. Like, I literally did when he walked out there with the whiskey glass and everything bottle. I was like, is he about to chunk this like into the sea or like off to the side, or is he gonna break it?
It looks so cool, but you're also
encouraging litter.
Yeah, like
encouraging polluting the ocean.
Aquaman doesn't do that. He wants the exact opposite. Like, come
on. Literally, his character wants the exact opposite.